Okay, good morning, my outstanding friends. This is a really exciting day for me because I have gone back to my early days when I had to figure out about the fascia, the interstitium, the fluid-filled highway, the enzymes, the nucleophilic transition, all of this stuff, very deep chemistry, biology, and all that, I did in the very early days, and I had forgotten all about this. My goose here, I call him Caesar Augustus, and there's his feathers and his head and everything. Now, he also, on his neck, when it broke, there's his artery right there, and it's running right along the edge of the interstitium, which is a layer that I discovered. It was not known until I came up with it from studying my mud fossils. And they now claim it is, yes, it's a new organ. Meet your interstitium, a new organ, and I'll show you this exactly. And this is only in 2018. Now, I'm going to show you also, I did the paper about this back in 2015, this is all fascia. Any coating is fascia. Now, this is going to separate the people that really care about understanding mud fossils and the people that all they want to see is some dragon or some monster or some giant, and then they go off and they just get all happy. Well, I like to understand what I see fully. I mean, fully. I don't like to see something and say, well, I'm sort of like a little blah. No, I like to say, okay, I understand it. If I don't understand it, I just keep going until I do understand it. And I do understand this, and you will too. It's not that hard. It's very simple. Wait till you see the videos that I did years ago. It blows my mind right now. I can't believe that I just let that lay. And I am finding all this stuff years and years ago I did. It was really spectacular, and I just forgot about it. You know, that's what happens. You bring it out a couple of times and nobody pays any attention. Well, it just goes in the background. Well, I'm going to bring it back forward again. Let's jump into it now. All right, just so you fully understand the chemistry here. Catalase is an enzyme made by the body. It uses hydrogen peroxide as its substrate. The enzyme is responsible for neutralizing decomposition of that hydrogen peroxide. It destroys it and removes the oxygen as you saw it bubble off. This is what these catalase things look like. Look at how intricate that is. That is so intricate, there's no way in the world this can form by itself, and it has to be exactly identical to that every single time or it just won't work. It's got to be exactly this chemistry. And I understand the chemistry now and what happens with nucleophilic substitution and invasion and how molecules are destroyed because of another theory I have, which is electron flood theory. And this electron flood floods right through here, replaced all of the organic matter and turned it into stable particles, and that's all the mud fossils. That's how the mud fossils form. And here's what happens with the mud fossils. Don't forget now, that outside layer is the interstitium. All right, your skin is interstitium. All your organs have interstitium on them. Everything has your tendons, and as a matter of fact, hold on, let me find this. Hold on a second. All right, this would be the easiest way to do this. Don't forget now, this goes way back to 2015, and by that time I had probably 5 or 6 years into studying this. So I said the interstitium, which is fascia basically, now they call it interstitium, you'd be a bag of gushy molecules. You wouldn't have any structure to you. And nobody was looking into it. Fascia is only recognized as important in the last few years, and that's only because it's a sports injury. You stretch that and you get injuries. And I was speaking to people in Germany. They seem to be the ones that knew the most about it. And when I confront other people about this preservation in the mud fossils, they say this is impossible, this can't happen. And I try to explain it. I feel like a doctor with a patient has glazed eyes. Unless you are a medical person, you may never have heard of fascia. So, okay, what is it? Okay, this is number 1 on my list here. So let's see what it is. This is anatomytrains.com fascia. All right, what is fascia? Fascia is the biological fabric, and it holds us together. Connective tissues network. There are about 70 trillion cells in your body, and every single cell has fascia on it, all humming in relative harmony. Fascia is the 3D spider web of fibrous, gluey, and fascia-wet proteins. It binds them together in their proper placement. Not only that, it coats all of these organs. And then they go down to defining fascia. They can't even really define it yet. It says here, increasingly in scientific and research circles, professionals worldwide about fascia has a wider definition. All right? It is the fluid-filled highway. And again, this is stuff I was already deep into. It's all the collagenous-based soft tissue in the body, including the cells. Even the cells maintain this network of extracellular matrix, everything around it, that coats the cells. And every single layer in your body is coated. Answering the question, what is fascia, with this new definition, includes all the tissues traditionally designed as fascia, plus all the other very similar tissues arrayed in different ways. Anyway, they started trying to figure it out. They are all made out of largely the same stuff and created in the same way. But there is still some surrounding discussion about what you really want to call fascia. I call it everything that coats everything. So feathers are fascia too. Feathers that coat this guy's body, this goose's body, and their feathers and their fascia. Skin is fascia. And they claimed it's everywhere in your body. It's 100%. And this is new organ system. And they're all tied together. All right, let's just continue on with the paper. Fascia is the coating on every fiber of your entire cellular structure. It is the web of life. Ancient times it was called tunica, which is like a cloak. Fascia has a job to do, and it protects and separates tissue, and it does it well during your lifetime. And guess what? If you die and are buried quickly and stay wet in wet mud and compacted in fine mud, the fascia doesn't even know you're dead, because the wet mud is basically your eroded skin and flesh. So it's still inside of flesh, and the membrane still goes both ways, and it knows what to take in and what not to take in. But eventually it takes in what it needs to become stable, and that's what created the stability of mud fossils. And it depended upon what the condition they were in at the time they died, and what metals and salts and acids and so forth were right in that general area, and how it compacted. It depends on what the end product is going to be. Sometimes there's all kinds of end products, including opals all the way down to sandstone. Now, the fascia separates everything in your body, and it's a complete fabric bag, your skin, your everything. So now we get down to there are over 20 types of collagens and keragens. Some protect from acids, others from caustic, others mineralized for strength. Variety is amazing. These fibers are infused with silicon. 50 times more silicon in these fibers than the rest of your body. Now let's see, number 2. What do I have to say about number 2? All right, connected. Whoops, can't be reached. Well, so much for that one. All right, but anyway, this is biology, connective tissue, and that's what I was showing, connective tissue. You can look it up. So that was number 2. All right. Number 3 is the fibers are infused with silicon. Let's see what I had to say about that. All right. We have examined the type of raw material needed and how it must accumulate in a natural environment. Da, 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 da. I got to be honest with you. Well, I get into keragens and so forth. Anyway, it had something to do with it. I can't remember. I got to be honest with you. But what it was about was the transformation of connective tissues into stone. And what's this one? Might as well look at it while we're here. This is about fascia, morphological description, classification, system based on a literature review. Now, this goes back to 2012. Again, I was studying this stuff for quite a long time. Fascia is virtually inseparable from all structures in the body and acts to create continuity amongst tissues to enhance function and support. Well, it does a lot more than that. It houses these fluid-filled highways. And again, that's brand new understanding. All right, let's just finish up with the fascia. Originally, the doctors called it fuzz. They didn't even know it had any real meaning in the body. And I spoke to this guy, Werner Kingler, over in the University of Ulm in Germany. They were doing some work on fascia as sports injuries. And he mentioned to me that they had found tattoo stuff in amongst the organs where they had fascia, and amongst the fascia in the muscles and everywhere, and they couldn't understand why the tattoo stuff would go there, and it ended up being this fluid-filled highway. Anyway, I worked with him for a little bit, just to talk back and forth. He doesn't support anything I say. I don't want to say anybody supports anything I say, because they may not. I have no idea. But he was very kind to me and talked to me. Now, as a component of support and posture, fascia is also suspected to be the source of many pains, and that's what they were looking into. Now, this is the approach that science is taking to fascia. Medical science is interested in life, not fossils. I'm interested in the fossils. How does the system work in the life process? How to detect and repair this as a system? That's what they're looking for. My approach is studying fascia is somewhat different. I analyze fossil fascia. I look at the chemistry. What can be explored? How are these rocks formed? What causes the elements and metals and such to concentrate? What are the steps in sublimation and solvomorphism? What is the process that creates fossil fuel transitions? Because that's all from fossil fuels. The fuels are all from biology, and it results in organic compounds and volatiles, gases, and so forth. How does pH affect the process? What effects does wet soil, spontaneous electrical potentials, which are called telluric currents, have on organic matter? What is the molecular structure of the biomasses in the body? All different, because it's all different types. You got acids, you got salts, you got kidneys, you got heart, you got lungs. What's the process of decomposition and purging of the fluids? How does that happen? How does it drain out? What were the conditions of the burial? What forms of chemical invasion are at play? How does tissues form layers, and how do they separate and transition? Why is there so many layers? What's the process creating voids and vugs and things? And I go on and on and on and on. So my point is that this was from a paper I did 2015. I was going to call this fascia facilitated fossilization because it did. But then I just decided, well, it was more related to the mud fossils. And then Yale, this is in 2015, then Yale in 2016 agreed and published this paper saying that exceptional preservation soft-bodied creatures from silica-rich oceans, 50 times more silica in the skin. I presented all this stuff. I gave them all this information. Then they wrote a paper taking credit for it. And it said that it happened exactly what I told them. Rapid precipitation of silica cement, something they'd never seen before or since. And that's because it was a hot flood from Venus almost hitting Earth. Reed Velikovsky, he was destroyed by the academics, just like I have been, because he came out with something new that was supported by the ancient texts. He had no evidence. I have all the evidence now, so it's a whole done different deal now. But I am supporting Velikovsky, and I wrote a book right at the same exact time called Velikovsky, what's it called, Mudfossils and Velikovsky and Mines in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision when Earth was almost hit by Venus. It combusted the atmosphere, it boiled the waters, it created a flood that surrounded the whole world. And that's what they say. This was a worldwide fossil preservation, worldwide, in this one layer. All salty, floody waters created all these exceptional preservation of the soft-bodied creatures. And this was before they even think there was life on Earth, basically. This is when they're touting how they did this in 2016. Don't forget, I was doing this much earlier than that. And they're saying that many of these creatures are bizarre in appearance, do not resemble any organism alive today, which is true. And she was the lead author of this paper. And they say it might have been a failed Ediacarta organism some sort of failed evolutionary experiment because they're all wiped out now? Or do they have any ancestors that colonize the oceans now? Well, and then I told him also this could have happened in a matter of hours to days or weeks. It enabled the transformation of these animals into rock to occur over a matter of hours or years rather than normal time frame. And it was all created by rapidly buried by, they say sand, it was mud, during underwater storm events. The whole Earth was underwater, that's why. So they're all, and you know, they're all saying the same thing. These are every big shot in the world is saying the same thing now. That I was right. That there was exceptionally preserved soft-bodied creatures from dense silicon, and it was the silicon is. Here's what happened. Like I told you, this is going to get a little on the advanced side, but phosphorus here, membranes, and everything I'm talking about is a membrane. Fascia is a membrane. So fascia is made of phospholipids. It's bilipid phospho. So two phosphorus layers with fats in between. Bilipid fatty layer. Well, when it heated up and boiled up in the ocean, the phosphorus converted down to aluminum silicates. Aluminum silicates coat virtually every rock there is. They say if you can find a rock that is not coated with aluminum silicates, it is a rarity. Well, what is aluminum silicates? It's feldspar. Feldspar is this coating on virtually every rock there is. They say that virtually every rock there is has feldspar. That's a bone. All right, and the inside, deep inside, it turns to basalt or limestone, whatever. But the fascia stays fascia. It turns into aluminum silicates, depending upon the type of body part it was. Because, like I say, there's some that have a pH of, salts and acids and so forth in your body, and a lot of blood. And some other places don't have any blood at all, basically tendons. Anyway, I think I've showed this enough about the preservation and the fascia. All right, if you want to get real deep into feldspars, there's a ton of different feldspars, but they all have one thing in common. They are all aluminosilicates. Well, what is aluminosilicates? Here it is right here, aluminosilicates, because it has boiled down from the phospholipids. So every rock, basically, there is almost, is coated with feldspar. It says if you can find a rock that is not a crust, it's a crustal rock, rocks that have a crust on them. If that crust is not feldspar, that is a rarity. They say that. So feldspar coats virtually everything. And it says feldspar makes up more than half of the Earth's crust. Professional literature about them constitutes a large percentage of the literature of mineralogy. It's all about that. But there is a lot of different types of aluminum silicates. They boil down from the membranes, but there's a lot of different types of membranes. That's the key. Like I said, acids, salts, tendons, muscles, heart, lungs, kidneys. They all have a different type of chemistry that coats them. All right, think about it that way. All right, so don't forget, we talked about feldspar. Well, where is feldspar on this chart? It's down here. It coats everything. It coats all of these things if they were igneous crustal rocks. Now, mud fossils and mudstone is down here. This is mudstone. All right, it's coated with feldspar. But inside, it's turned to stone, and it's from mud. All right. Then you got slightly calcareous mudstone, then marl, and this just becomes more and more down inside the body until you get to limestone, which is just calcium carbonates. It's the tendons basically. And then you have a mix of all these different things, limestone and sort of muscles at the same time and so forth. But it comes from clay, which is nothing more than mud, basically. Clay is mud, and mud is eroded flesh. All right, it goes from clay and then less and less clay until you get to limestone, which is almost completely, calcium carbonates. And actually, here's something here. Let me show you. All right, this is selenite. And this is an abrupt transition from a tendon. And that's the gluey red stuff that glues that tendon right at that abrupt transition. Now this is from, I think, a muscle, but I'm not certain, to be honest. But this was in an area where the chemistry washed out all the biological stuff, except some of the red blood is still there. The red blood is the toughest stuff in the world. It's just amazing. You see there's some in here too. And I have other ones like this heart here. You see this heart? That is a heart. All right, there's the aorta right there. That's the ventricle wall right there. And there's still a little tiny taste of blood, but everything else washed out. This is what's called a water opal. But that was a heart at one time. And this was in the mudfossil condition where it was in something that invaded it so deeply that it washed out all the transition metals. And normally these are saturated with blood. Well, it's a heart. So obviously saturated with blood. And this one here I cut open, and that's what's inside of a heart. And I've shown this so often that I'm not going to bother showing it again today. But these are all things that I have discovered and found and researched deeply. And they should be examined by somebody that is making up the rules of what you have to learn to be considered smart. Things change, and this is a big change. And this goes way back. This was in 2015. I had all this stuff done. This video goes back to 2015 from that same article about the fascia facilitated fossilization. This is a video I did back then. All right, I got the microscope fired up. I remember I showed you this is Caesar's neck right here, and that's the spot right there. That's this spot. And this is all of the catalase reaction and the bubbling of the catalase. Now, so obviously the enzyme is good inside of these, and this goes back to the same time. This is the flood. All my other stuff from the flood I tested too. It all foams up like that. Now, I have this. This was in very, very strange condition, which, like I say, something really invaded this and turned everything just completely clear glass. Now, will that react with hydrogen peroxide? That would be really interesting, because the other thing that I recently came to the conclusion that because of this hot water flood and boiling all of the enzyme, well, all of the membranes, the things that reside in the membranes are the enzymes. So the enzymes are going to be all over the ocean too. And the enzymes do unbelievable amounts of chemistry very, very quickly. I mean instantaneously, where it would take years to do something. They do it just like that. Now, could an enzyme still be active that's sitting right here? I don't think so. I don't think it could possibly survive. I'm going to put this in a microscope and we're going to check in a second. I got the microscope cooking. This is kind of exciting. Let's see what it does. And I also have an iron meteorite here, a little iron meteorite that has, I believe I know what it is. It's a lung, and it does have blood in this. It didn't burn up so much that all the blood was destroyed. And we'll look at this in a microscope too, because the same thing that is in here is exactly what they're going to find on Comet Bennu, what they just brought back, or Asteroid Bennu. They just brought back a sample of it. It is going to be blood. Absolutely guaranteed it's a heart. All right, so I tell you, I'm going to take credit for discovering this fluid-filled highway that runs through this body. And before they would see, it would be flat as a pancake because all the fluids were drained out. What I was looking at was they were all filled up with fluids, and I could see them. I could see all these balls, which are these balls, and I could see this fluid-filled highway. All right, and I just showed you in Caesar's neck, he has the same thing, and there was an artery here that fed that so I could see it really nicely. Now, these little balls are everywhere, and they're not little everywhere, they're big some places, like here. This is Hunton, I think, beach in the United Kingdom. Everybody tells me I don't know how to pronounce it. It's probably not right. That's what I got. And these are the Moki marbles. These are in Utah and Arizona. And they have the same thing on Mars. They're called the Mars blueberries. They're identical. And these are the same balls as these, and they flush out of this wall of body tissue. And that's the skin, and that's the interstitium is right up there, the fluid-filled highway. And all the balls fell out. And it's the same balls that are up in here. Same things. And this is microscopic. And this is what they look like now. And they agree this is a brand new fluid-filled highway. You see, Meteorite interstitium, new found organ. This is 2018, and here's that layer. Now, there was a Caesar's artery was right here. So we could see all that, bubbling up and everything through the fluid-filled highway. I thought that was really exceptional. I had forgotten all about that video. That was years ago. All right, this is something that's really quite interesting. This, again, is the interstitium area, and these are something you only have between the ages of 15 and 25, somewhere around there. These are called Peyer patches, and they're in the gut lining, and this is the interstitium layer here. Now, they produce some kind of enzymes, I believe, because, like I say, they're a part of your immune system, and they're only in, or they decline a lot after you get to be 25, something like that. But between 15 and 25, these are very active. And after that, they go down. And these are all involved in bacteria, enzymes, immunity, and they're all right next to this fluid-filled highway. And that's where almost all of your enzymes and bacteria are created, in your gut. So this covers a lot of territory, this research. All right, this is going to be really interesting. I haven't done this. This is that selenite, and this has been exposed for probably 1,000 years, but it still has some red blood in there. Now, could those enzymes possibly have survived? We're going to find out. I'm putting it in the microscope right here, and we're going to take a look at it. I'm going to put some hydrogen peroxide on here, and we're going to see if these enzymes survive from this extreme amount of invasion. I'm going to be very surprised, but I've been surprised before. All right, so I got to turn the light off so we can see it in the microscope here. That light has to be very dim, and we're going to be looking at it up here, and I am going to be putting some hydrogen peroxide on this area. Now, you really got to get the light exactly right to see this. Too much light, you're not going to pick it up good. Very hard to get this adjusted correctly. Sometimes I use an external light source. This should show up. This should show up. All right, let's get ready and put some hydrogen peroxide on there. All right, sometimes it's better to use an external light source. So I'm going to, this I think is going to give us a better visual idea of what's going on if I get it in the right area. All right, so let's put a little hydrogen peroxide on there and see if we can see anything at all. And I got a feeling nothing's going to happen, but again, I could be wrong. And it will take a while for it to get started because it's got to break through some of the outer edges. Now, let's see. Oh, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. This is amazing. Look at this. Look, look, look. These enzymes are still freaking active. I can't believe this. Watch here. This is going to take a while because it's got to work its way down in. But that's a blood vessel right there. You can see it, around a little blood vessel. And I can see that it's starting to bubble up. You see that sort of activity? Same thing here. You don't see that everywhere else. You only see it right there where the blood is. And this is, again, it's going to take a while for that catalase to start doing its job. The more I put in there of the hydrogen peroxide, the more it should bubble. Now let's take this light off and put this light on, and see if we can see anything with this. Now see that one, you can't even see it. I think it was bubbling. It looked like it was bubbling to me. Yeah, I can see the bubbles. It's taken a long time. You see that bubble growing? That means the oxygen is coming out. I can see some other ones. There's all a bunch of little tiny bubbles now. But again, this could take a long time for it to really get in there and start acting and working. Let's go with that other light source in a second and see if that... Too much light, you really can't see. I can see it here, but it's bubbling. Can you see that? You see it bubbling there? You see that bubbling? Over here you don't see it bubbling. There's no bubbling over here. But there is a lot of little red blood cells. There might be a little bit of bubbling, but here is right into your artery or a blood vessel of some sort. Red oxygen is coming out of there. Now again, this will start to take on more and more bubbling as that hydrogen peroxide works deeper and deeper into the blood. This is pretty amazing that catalase could last this long in something that was so heavily invaded as that piece of selenite. Look at that. You see it moving? It's bubbling all over. All right, this microscope is not all that fabulous, but it works pretty good. But you can definitely see it. And you can definitely see that it is a blood vessel, and that thing was at one time alive, and now it's turned basically into glass with just a taste of blood left. It is right now bubbling. That's phenomenal. And that means, to me, what do you take away from that? That means to me that these things are all over the earth, and I can really see it bubbling now. I can see it really getting started. But these things are all over the earth, and they still have their enzymes working. And what does an enzyme do? It does extreme amounts of chemistry very, very fast. This is a startling conclusion here, because the whole world is covered with these feldspars and so forth. This is right below that interstitium layer. It's not everywhere. It doesn't bubble everywhere. It only bubbles where the blood in the interstitium was, which bubbled off in this worldwide flood. And these things create chemistry so fast, it's unbelievable. So I have a feeling that this was what caused a lot of the things to turn into stone very quickly, because of these catalysts. They're catalysts. Enzymes are catalysts. A catalyst makes something happen literally millions, and I'm not kidding you, millions of times faster than it would happen in nature if you didn't have the enzyme. The enzyme is just off the walls fast. All right, this may be a better area for us to look at. This is the same rock, and I'm going to put a little catalase in there and see if we can see anything there. All right, if it's going to happen, that should be enough to make it happen. This would be where you'd see it, or up in here. I can see bubbles coming out of there. You see little bubbles coming out of there? Yep, you can see them coming out. You see them? There it goes right there. There we go. We got your bubbles. We got your bubbles. They're coming. Look at them now. Now we got it. Now we got. Look at them coming out now. This still has catalase in it. That's still a viable enzyme. Look at them coming out now. This is the interstitium layer. These are layers like this. And that's where these enzymes exist. Now, they're apparently still all over the Earth. I'm going to put some more in here. The more you put in, the more reaction you should get. You know, if they're still viable. And you can see they are. You see the reactions? Look at them bubbling now. Look at them coming out. You see that? See the bubbles coming out of it? You can't miss it, really. I mean, they're bubbling up now pretty good. If I kept putting more and more in there, they would keep bubbling more and more out. It eats up the hydrogen peroxide that I'm putting in there and turns it into water. So what you have to do is you have to keep putting more and more in. But I would think at some point the enzymes are going to run out. I mean, this thing's been sitting around for literally got to be a couple thousand years. Let's do another shot right there one more time. I never suspected this would still have catalase in there that would be working. But there's no question it's there and it's working. It's working. It's absolutely working. No question whatsoever. See the bubbles? See that? That is the signature right there of the catalase doing its job. And that means that these enzymes can last, as far as I'm concerned, forever. This is amazing. Don't forget, that's what we're looking at right there. That's what we're looking at, is the layer here. All right, that's where there's still some blood left in this, and that's basically one of the only spots there is. And other than that, it's completely transitioned into selenite. All right, this has unbelievable consequences. If this could continue to keep its enzyme active, the catalase, I would assume all the other enzymes in your body are still going to be active even after you're dead and you're laying around in bits and pieces all over. And I'm going to show you a Caesar, or again, I think I might have shown you already how he bubbled up, but I'm going to hit that artery again, and it'll produce more reactions, I'm sure. So let's do that. Okay, this is Caesar again. This is a Caesar, this is a goose. These are his feathers. And again, I call that interstitium, even though they're feathers. Now, this right down here is the artery. And I'll show you that in a second. It's right here. And this is going to be filled with catalase. It seems that, you know, I can get more catalase. I did it before and it bubbled like crazy. Let's see if it'll bubble up as much this time, but I think it will. All right, here's the microscope looking down at the artery. And here it is in the screen. All right, let me back this out. All right, you can see that is the artery. Now, why is it all those little scratchy looking things? Well, because I scratched it with a pick to get down through the surface, because the surface sort of seals up a little bit, but not much. Now, I'm going to put the catalase on there right now, and we'll watch this reaction taking place. All right, here we go. This is kind of hard to get in here. Hold on, I'm going to have to move it and put it back. All right. Now, let's watch this reaction occur. You see all these little bubbles showing up right here? Look at how fast that's happened. Look at that. Now, this is Caesar. He was in the same flood as everybody else. They were all together at the same time in the same flood. He's flat as a pancake on one side. You see that Catalase reaction? That's just incredible. That is amazing. You see it? And that's his artery. And that'll get more and more bubbly as it sits here, because it's penetrating deeper and deeper. Now, I might have to put more on there to get as much of a reaction, because every one of those bubbles is liberating an oxygen from the H2O2, turning it into water. So eventually, in a minute or two, it'll have wiped out all the extra oxygens. And that's what it does in your body. They're called reactive oxygen species. They're not good for your body to have free-floating, basically hydrogen peroxide. That's what it does. It attacks hydrogen peroxide. And this is hydrogen peroxide. You see it? Now it's starting to finish off. We're not getting as many reactions now. But if I put some more on there, we should get a bunch more reactions. Let's give it another shot. You see how it's pretty much stopped? Well, let's do it again. Let's do it again, Sam. Play it again, Sam. Oh yeah, baby, she's gonna take off. I know for the fact. Alright, let me home it back in again. There she goes. There she goes, mon amour. See it? Bubbling like crazy. And it'll eat up all that extra oxygens in the hydrogen peroxide. That's what it's doing right there. Very, very obvious that that's the Catalase reaction. All right, so this opens up a whole new door of how long these enzymes can last. And I know the DNA lasted in my giants, and they were from the same time frame too, and it was excellent quality, excellent quality. All right, you see this? This is a little lung, and this is the tab. They all have the same tab. It comes down and latches the lung in. And this is a tiny little lung. You see all the red blood, and I'm going to show you this closer up. But I am also going to tell you this is a lung, but it's not a terrestrial lung. This came through space. This is an iron meteorite. And this is the flap that is a special little piece on lungs. And it exists on all the lungs. I'll show you. All right, don't forget this little tab here. This is exactly the same thing as this. It's exactly the same. This is a small lung. I don't know what kind of creature it is, but they all have that little latch. Identical to this. Not only do they have them on lungs, they have them on other body parts like this. All right, you see that latch? It's the same latch. It's the same latch that comes down and locks this body part into another body part, which creates this interstitium highway. That's how I knew it was one giant system. And there's two little spots on the end of here that allow that fluid to flow through to the next, wherever that locked into. Now this is obviously muscle now, but your muscles lock in just as every other body part does to something else. Wherever you're locked into is where you pull from. This is part of your lung, holds the lung from flopping around. And every one of them has it, so it's not unusual, but this is unusual because it came through space. And this still has enzymes in it as well. I tested this and it does. I'm going to do it right now. See right here, this is the structure of a lung. It looks exactly like that. This is iron, it's iron meteorite. And we're going to look down in here. I'm going to show you the fascia, and then I'm going to show you the actual blood, and then I'm going to show you the blood foaming up from the catalase reaction. Okay, look at this. This is called pleura. This is a lung, and it's been DNA tested and CAT scan. Excellent quality DNA. Literally red blood came out of here. And it's, again, flat as a pancake. They all are, because they died in a great flood and all settled down, and all the flesh boiled off. Literally boiled off because of this great flood. Now, we're going to look at this lung, which is the iron meteorite. And again, everything I can find, and even the things in space, all are biology. It's just, there is nothing that isn't biology that I can find. Now, here's that, where are we here? All right, here's the lung, the iron lung, up in the microscope. Now, I just showed you the pleura, all those little white fabric-y looking things. Well, this one burnt off, so it's more black. Whoops, let me go here. Hold on. All right, this is a little more black. Well, it's a lot more black than the other one, because the other one was a terrestrial one, and it didn't cook coming through the atmosphere. So this is, again, an iron meteorite. Of that, there is no question. I think there's something wrong with my little dial here. Okay, so here we are. There's the black pleura. These are the little fibers that are in there that give it, these are collagens. They give us stretch and hold it and bring it back. This is blood. It's filled with all kinds of little holes. Now, let me go to the other side, because there's a good spot that we can look at. Well, this goes right down inside. You see that hole right there? That's one of the alveoli. You see it going down inside? We should be able to get some catalase reaction out of this area. I'm absolutely sure. And again, a lung from outer space. All right, so let's put some hydrogen peroxide on there and see what happens. I can see it bubbling already. You see it? See it bubbling up? That's hydrogen peroxide, and this is a meteorite, came through space. So this was pretty hot. It cooked up a lot of it. Let me see if I can get in here where we can see it a little better. All right, let me jiggle this around a little bit, see what we can get here. You see the bubbles coming out of there? That's going down inside to where the artery is. But we're still getting it up over here too. You see it bubbling up over here? Bubbling all over the place. Wherever there's blood, and this is, again, this came through space, and I have another one here, another meteorite that has the same thing. It's saturated with blood. All right, here it is right here. New findings, this is just March of 2023, fit well with the hypothesis that bodies like comets or meteorites, asteroids that bombarded early Earth seeded the young planet with compounds that helped pave the way for the first microbes. Scientists previously detected key organic molecules in carbon-rich meteorites found on Earth. Well, not only organic molecules, blood and body parts. That's a meteorite. I'm going to show you another meteorite. It was an iron meteorite, bigger than this, that smelted, and when they cut it in half, it's got a vein and an artery right in the middle of it. All of these things in space, I'm telling you right now, as far as I can determine, there is nothing that wasn't alive at one time. There's eroded things that have turned into sediments, absolutely, but they have eroded from living creatures. All right, I showed you my little iron meteorite. If you cut that in half, you'd find the same thing here. You'd have red blood, and you'd have vein blood. You see the vein is the black one right there? And that right there is the red, that's the artery. Now, why would they be in the middle of this iron meteorite? I can tell you why, because it's smelted coming through the atmosphere and cooked off all the volatile stuff and left the metals primarily when they cut it, and I believe they probably etched it with some acid. And this is what remains, is all these different metals that have sort of coalesced, and then of course you have the blood. Now, I believe this was probably a liver, because I don't see all the, well, let me show you other meteorites, and I show you mine. This has all kinds of cavities in it, and that's what you're normally going to see, except for a liver. A liver still has a ton of blood, but it's not cavitated like a lung or a heart or lungs primarily. See that? That's the Willamette meteorite. That is a lung. It's a lung, came through space and smelted everything off as it got real hot. That's what happens when they smelt metal. And there, right there, is one of those little passageways that goes into the alveoli. You see that little red spot there? And they're all going in everywhere. These aren't just little holes for no reason. This was a lung. And I have one here that's in a similar condition, only it's not metal. This was a terrestrial one. And this is what they look like inside. If you got rid of all the volatile stuff, the structural component and the iron turns into something that looks just like this. And I understand this stuff very, very, very well now. So I think it's time to look into this a little deeper. Now, this is an extremely cool thing. This is asteroid Psyche, and this is asteroid Bennu. You see them? They're virtually identical. This is heart valves. These are heart valves. These are both hearts. This one has smelted to some degree. It must have been a very, very hot area. This one is not hot whatsoever. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at, whoops, not that. That's a lung. Here's what we're looking at right here is the heart valves. All right, and here they are right here. Now, there's also stuff in here that are tubing that's sticking out. You see what a heart looks like? It has all these little tubes in and out of here and there, and you know, the big ones are the valves, the left and right atrium valves. But there has a whole bunch of other plumbing sticking out. Now, here is Bennu. Very easy to see. Let me turn this light off, make it easier. Now, you see these cavities here? Those are the valves. You see that right over there? That's not a crater. That's a tube sticking out that was heading somewhere, I don't know where. These things down at the bottom, you see this one and that one right there? I believe that's the valve right there. And this is for the red side, and this is another tube sticking out that went into the vein blood. You see how this is black, very black, and this is red? That's the different colors of blood. Now, they landed this exact same place right up here. They landed and picked up a sample and brought it back to Earth, and I have already commented on it and made my determination. This is going to be blood. It's going to have exactly the same metals as blood. Now, there might be a little variation because it's been cooking in the sun for thousands of years probably. Now, this right here, this is tendinous material. And a tendon locks in to where muscles hook into it. All right? And the muscles are on the other side, but I'll show you in a second. And this is just sort of floppy. And I will show you what this looks like in an actual heart. It's exactly identical. This is where you're going to see a white layer, and then it comes wrapped around this way, and then it turns red where the muscle is. Because this is the tendon that locks it in solid. You have to have a tendon always, always, always. And then it hits the muscle. You need that little tough lock-in part, which is this right here. You see that? This was from a living heart. Now, this is where I showed you that white stuff that's locked in. This is a tendon. It comes down to the muscle. The muscle twists in a heart. It's like one big rubber band inside here, and it twists. This is the locked in part. This is the part that eroded away, and then you come down to your valves. And then there's a ton of other little spots in here that are going to show up like they're going to look like little craters. But they're not necessarily craters. They might be. But these are the big plumbing. These are the heart valves. And then this is the tendon I just showed you. And again, I will show you again so that it's 100% clear. That's the tendon I just showed you. This is that red stuff where it comes down over towards the two valves. Red and black is the colors of blood. And yellow is the intermediary between the red and the black. And also lymph is in that same color. But you see all these things down here? That right there, I think that's a vein valve. Let's see if we can see something that looks like that. It's something, it's one of these, like this one here or something, I believe. Or it might be behind that thing. I don't know, but these are vein valves. All right, they're not just nothing. They're vein valves, and that's what the heart is, and that's where that tendon is right here. And again, they brought this sample back. I've already made my determination. This is blood. And this is out in outer space. They're just gigantic. Comet 67P is absolutely enormous, and they had a lander go on there, and it's all biology too. And it's I believe it's a hip joint. And they talk about these battles in the skies and in the heavens of giants, and they personified all kinds of things in space as being actual physical creatures. And it appears to me that these are gigantic. These are huge. And they're identical. This is virtually identical. Virtually identical to Bennu, only like you see it's been seared. Something hit it with a lot of heat, and Bennu has not had any heat at all. This is absolutely flawless. And when they hit there and they grabbed it and popped back off, they said all kinds of debris floated around because it's all blood, literally blood. It's chunks of blood and you know, dried blood. They thought it was going to be like grab a chunk of something, but no, it was all kinds of debris. And that's exactly what you would expect to be from a heart. If it had blood all over it, and that heart's going to have blood all over it, it's going to have tubing coming out of it all over the place. It's going to have valves. It's going to have the tendons. It's going to have the muscles. It's going to have the colors. This is what it is. And now, having it become here back on Earth, I want to see the results of their tests. They've had it here since, I think, last month. They've had it here, I think, at least over a month. I'm not certain of that, but they should be able to release some information on it by now. All right, see, new findings. Everything is new now, and they're starting to come nibble around the edges. But these are meteorites found right here on Earth. They're saturated, as I showed you. You got blood in them right here. All right, so as I said, they hit the surface and grabbed something. And when they did, all this stuff went flying, and they were amazed. They said, well, they shouldn't do that. Well, I understand why. It's just dry and eroded blood, basically, which is what happens to it when it gets real dried out. Okay, not another word from NASA since they dropped this sample off and they found a bunch of extra debris in here. But I'm going to tell you right now, that is blood. They landed on there and it just, all kinds of debris went flying, which is blood, and that's why they picked up all this extra dusty material. Now, they looked at it and right away they discovered that it was basically like stuff, you know, biological. And they say the sample has a high carbon and water content. That's basically life. Hydrocarbons. All right. Okay, all I can say is when I go back to the ancient texts, they ring true to me now. I know they sound just absolutely insane, but the dragons, the giants, the whole 9 yards, Hercules, all of that stuff. And here it is right here, the library contents, the birth of Zeus, war of the Titans, the gods, war of the giants and Typhon, Prometheus, who supposedly molded men out of clay. Deucalion was Noah, who was his son, and because this is Greek. But it goes down, all down here, through all of the Hercules and the wars of Hercules, the 12 labors of Hercules, all of these different god creatures that were like love was a creature. They were the gods were feelings and emotions and everything had a god that was that amplified that and maintained those certain things, even hatred and love and violence and all kinds of things. They were named by one of the gods that took care of that. I mean, and this is just so far off the charts that it's just amazing. Zeus was full grown. He took Metis as the daughter of Ocean, the daughter literally of the ocean. To help him, she gave Kronos a drug to swallow. He forced him to disgorge first a stone, then all the children whom he had swallowed. With their aid, Zeus waged a war against Kronos and the Titans. They fought for 10 years, and Earth prophesied victory to Zeus if he should have as allies those who had curled down to Tartarus. So this goes deep into exactly how everything happened on Earth and how everything turned violent. It's a stunning revelation to me. And again, this is Apollodorus, and especially when you get to 1.6.3. All right, 1.6. All right, 1.6.2 is all about Hercules and Hera and the battles and Zeus inspiring with lust. And I mean, it's just crazy. And at the end, it talks about the Fates fighting with brazier clubs killed Argus and Thoas, the other giants Zeus smote and destroyed with thunderbolts, and all of them Hercules shot with arrows as they were dying. And it's so far off the charts, but this is what killed me, because this is exactly true. It says, when the gods had overcome the giants, and he killed all the giants, Earth, Gaia, was more enraged and had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon in Sicilia. That's the giant beast dragon that's all across North Africa. In size and strength, he surpassed all of the offsprings of Earth. His thighs were like humans, which is his, and the rest of them, he outtopped all the mountains. His head often brushed the stars. And then it goes on and on and on about his red flared eyes, and he had 100 dragon's heads, which it says that Zeus had burnt them off with his thunderbolts. And it goes on and on and on here. And he's chasing after the gods. Typhon hurled kindled rocks he made for the very heaven to the gods, spouting a great jet of fire from his mouth. When the gods saw him rushing at the heavens, they made for Egypt in flight, and being pursued, they changed their forms into those of animals. And Typhon got a fish, which is an animal. And then it goes on and on and on and on and on. And I mean, it just goes forever. And here's Prometheus molded men out of water and earth. And he got in trouble because he gave us fire, and Zeus didn't like that. And then it talks about Pandora and Deucalion, who is Noah, and how he was told to construct a chest, which is the ark. And having stored it with provisions, he embarked with his wife Pyra. Zeus poured heavy rain from heaven, flooded the greater part of Greece. All the men were destroyed except a few who fled to the high mountains. It was then that the mountains in Thessalia parted, and all the world outside the isthmus was overwhelmed. But Deucalion floated in a chest over the sea for 9 days. This is basically what's in the Bible about Noah's Ark. And this is so crazy And the same thing happened to Enoch. This stuff is so crazy that they could not talk about it anymore because people just call them insane. And the same thing with Enoch. They say, well, you can't talk about giants 2.5 miles tall, which they were. There's no question. And very, very little question that that's true. And I have body parts from them, just like this is a hair follicle. This literally is a hair follicle, and that is no question whatsoever. There's the pili muscle attachment. There's the sebaceous gland. There's the vein and artery down the bottom. There's the hair shaft, and it's flat on one side. It's a curly-haired person. So these things were absolutely gigantic, and my giants have been DNA tested. They're not that size, but one of them is probably close to 200 feet. That's a pretty good-sized guy. And it goes on. I mean, it's just so incredibly crazy that anybody that could even consider this would have to be considered insane. But when I found all the things I found, I had no way other than to continue on looking at it. And the more I looked, the more I realized this is not silly. This is very, very factual. And the 1.6.3 about Typhon, that was the one that sealed it for me. His fire flashed from his eyes. And he attacked the fish in the desert. Okay, I showed you Psyche and Bennu, which are the two asteroids. I say they're hearts. Now, they brought a sample back to Earth on October 12th. And when they did, they found that the excess around it contained abundant water and carbon, as well as iron minerals. That's because it's a heart. Now, in addition to the iron and the carbon and the water, they are going to have all the transition metals, literally all of them that are in here, which are the things that are found in blood. And I'll show you what they are, the transition metals. You see this? This is why they found a bunch of water, because there's a bunch of these metals. And the water attaches to them, the H2Os, or OH2s basically. But what happens is these different metals, these transition metals, and they're all different colors. And the reason they're different colors is they have different energy levels and different oxygenation states, all these pluses and so forth. And what they want to do is give up some particles and take some on, or take some particles on and give some up. You know, I guess that's the same thing. But anyway, this is what's in your blood, and I guarantee you, no question whatsoever, they're going to find all this stuff. Already they said they found the iron and the carbon and the oxygen. Any of these metal cores is going to be dense with these hydrocarbons, or oxygen hydrogens. And I mean, it's exactly what they're going to find. I guarantee you they're going to find it. They're talking about, we're going to send it to everywhere in the world and look at it for the next 5 years. Well, I'd like to see what the analysis is right away. All you got to do is take that scruff that was laying on the capsule. As soon as they took off the canister, there was a bunch of other stuff that was collected in there, because the whole thing just spit up like crazy when they snapped down on it. So they looked at that stuff. I don't know if they've even opened the canister yet, but there hasn't been another word about it that I could find since they collected this thing by, and I immediately responded. I said, before you open that up, I can tell you what's going to be in there. This is what's going to be in there. All the transition metals will be in there, basically in the same concentrations as they are in blood. Like iron, it's going to be dense. Like they said, there's plenty of iron, and there's carbon, and there's oxygen, or water. And basically that's it. So I want to see all of if it matches the profile of blood. When it's going to be pretty close. Now, there's going to be some changes, I would imagine, because of the radiation, and that can maybe break down some things. The way the mud fossils were broken down, the phospholipids were broken down to the aluminum silicates. You see phospholipids up there broken down to aluminum silicates. Now, on Psyche, you're going to find a whole different chemistry, because all the cheap stuff's burnt off. Something here roasted this puppy, I can tell you that right now. All the cheap stuff's gone, and now you got almost all metals. This one here got all the blood and goo and tendon and all that stuff is still here. And so this did not get roasted the way Psyche did, but they're both hearts. And it's like that. So, and again, that's a lung. Well, they got roasted off coming through the atmosphere, and all the cheap stuff burns off, all the volatiles, and you end up with metals. And again, if anybody can deny what I'm saying, I want them to deny it. I want to be taken seriously because my research is serious. I have DNA tests, I have CAT scans, I have the chemistry, I have virtually everything explained. And it is over the top so far that they just won't even talk. They just run and hide. And again, this is nothing more than skin. And these are nothing more than interstitium balls. I don't know if I even showed you this. I can't remember. Again, I got interrupted a batch of times. But that's nothing more than skin. That's interstitium. These are the little balls that hold everything in place. And this is just nothing more than mud, which is runoff of bodily tissues that just erode. Okay, I've been posting for years and years about what is really out there and where's on Mars and all the rest. And here's Bill Nelson, the NASA administrator, saying almost everything we do at NASA seeks to answer questions about who we are and where we come from. NASA missions like OSIRIS-REx improve our understanding of asteroids, could threaten Earth while giving us a glimpse into what lies beyond. The sample has made it back to Earth, but still so much science to come. Science like we've never seen before. Yes, Bill, I agree. I love you all. It's time to look at this with open eyes. This is not right. This is just not right. There's just too much evidence to push this under the rug. And the people that we have selected as our leaders are the ones that are letting us down. And the people that we selected as our teachers and we put faith in are just letting us down. There's no other way to put it. I'm sorry. Just a fact. That is a case closed. Now, can they turn around from this and embrace reality, even though it is a shock? Can they handle the truth? Well, we're going to find out. I love you all. Thank you.